Birth date, October 4th, 1935.
March 1st, 1935. Fun, lots of jump rope, lots of hopscotch, family reunions.
Didn't you have to go get a milk? Wasn't that your
Oh,
responsibility?
yes. We had to walk a block down to a farmer's to get our big gallon of milk, and it was glass with just a little ring that you hook your finger under to carry it. I was about 7 or 8, and my brothers were in camp with the Boy Scouts, so I had to go get the milk. I assured my parents I could do it, I could handle it. So I went down and I got it, and I had one finger and I couldn't lift it, so I had it this way. And I was walking along the sidewalk going home. Then I'd have to sit it on the sidewalk. It was too heavy, and rest. And then I'd pick it up again and go 10 or 20 feet and set it down. Well, one time I sat it down a little too hard, and there was a whole ring above the bottom that cracked. And when I went to pull it up, the milk just went everywhere. And needless to say, my parents weren't real happy about it. We didn't have milk that night.
And you didn't get a spanking?
No,
Well, that's good.
no, because I tried.
Oh, you cried.
Well, I cried too, but I tried.
I see.
I tried to go get it, but crying always worked when nothing else did. Oh, yes, in school. In 3rd grade, we were going to chorus to see what we were going to play, and we all tried the violin and the cello, and everybody was placed. After the tryouts, we went back the next day at school. He announced what you were going to play, what you were the best at, whether it was drums, and the whole school, everybody got called but me. The only thing left was the bass violin, the big one.
The stand-up one.
A stand-up one. So the teacher then called my name and took me back there, and he had one of those high stools with the round seat about this high. Told me to get up on the stool, and he gave me the bow. He said, "Now you're going to play this, Wanda." I was supposed to reach my arm around and couldn't, so I had to start this way, sitting up on that stool. So I learned to play the bass, and then I graduated down to just a footstool. I got off the big one you sat on. And then I graduated to the floor. But he loved his little girl cello. Every time our parents were invited to a program, which they often were, when I was in school, the whole orchestra would be sitting right under the stage, and here would be my violin right out in front, my bass valve. And I used to think, well, why can't he put it in the back or something? But he wanted to show me off, this little girl that was playing the bass violin. I had to play, and I'd hear the audience, "Oh, she's so little to play that." It was embarrassing for me. But that was one experience. Another is I was taking to tap dancing and ballet, and I was trying to teach some other girls some tap steps. So we were in the girls' restroom tapping up a storm with taps on my shoes, of course. My tap shoes were on. And a teacher walked and scolded us and took us to the principal's office. Me and one other girl, I think they had tap shoes on, dancing. And the principal said we had to write 100 times, "I will not tap dance in the girls' restroom." And so I was just sick. I knew I was going to be kicked out of school for doing something so bad. So anyway, I wrote it 100 times and took it down to him, and he said, "All right, you're not going to do that again, are you, Wanda?" No, not do that.
My dad was a fireman. He was a volunteer fireman, that we didn't have a telephone. And so they required a telephone in order to be a permanent, permanent isn't quite the right word, to be a full-time fireman. We got a phone, which was really neat. We had a phone experience before that. Dad was using a public phone, tried to call, and then hung up the phone. I said, "What happened, Dad? Did you get in touch with him?" And he said, "No, the line was busy."
The lion's busy.
Yeah, the lion's busy.
The lion?
And I said, "What's he doing, eating?" So he assured me that the lion wasn't eating. And end of that story.
What did the phone look like?
I'm sorry?
What did it look like, the telephone?
Oh, the telephone.
Uh-huh.
Oh, it's a base, and it did not have a dial on it. You had to deal with the woman at the...
The operator?
Yes.
Wow.
And then it had a stem.
Uh-huh.
And an earphone that you put up to your ear. Oh, and the speaker that was on the end of the phone. pretty much what it was. And so he then started getting fire calls, and he'd have to get in his car and go half a mile, maybe just a little more, to the fire station to get the fire truck. And he spent the rest of his life there. He actually was a guard at the Columbia Iron Works. You know where they're at? Right on the river. And so after the war ended, then he applied and got a fireman's job, full-time fireman's job there at that steel plant. Oh, then we moved to Murray, and then he started part-time at the Salt Lake County Fire Department. It's pretty much, he just spent his whole life there. He, by the way, has his name in a shrine at the fire department works or whatever offices. And when Stephen was visiting back there, he was a volunteer fireman for this very company. And when he was back visiting, he happened to look at the shrine, and there was Grandpa's name on it. So he made a big deal. And I didn't know about it either until he showed me Grandpa's name. We lived in a small town that had a movie house, and so Tarzan, the ape man, in the movie often, and so we often watched him, thought it was a big deal. And then Dad chopped down 4 cottonwood trees, full-grown cottonwood trees. So our yard, for a pretty big yard, was a mass of just tree trunks, branches and tree trunks. So as kids, we would play Tarzan, and we would wear a swimming suit out there in all those trees. And then bark was really rough, and so we'd shoot Indians and shoot natives and ride elephants, all kinds of things on those tree trunks. I wondered why they didn't put me away when I grew a little older and seen how silly it must look. No, in fact, my sister's noble older sister would take pictures, so I had to put up with them for years. Everybody that would come visit us had to look at Tarzan. Anyway, I finally found where they were hid and destroyed them, so I got away from that. I remember we lived between 2 railroad tracks, the Union Pacific and the Rio Grande. Between these tracks was the river flowed, and so it was an isolated area. In fact, at one end of it they used for a city commercial dump. Not commercial, private. The private houses would be picked up by a truck and dumped at one end. So it had somewhat of an aroma. And the river was down there. It was fish in the river and ducks and hobos. Not at that time, it was actually hobos. And they would get jobs from there's some farmer. And they'd get jobs from the farming and then take them down to, and by the way, there was a cannery there. So there was cans, gallon cans that were available to them. And they would take these cans and swipe a chicken most often, pluck him, put him in the pan, or in the can in water and boil him, and eat him for dinner. And there was, there would be between 4 and 6 guys down in what we called the hobo jungle. And it was between the 2 railroad tracks right on the river, of course. And then they would eat all. And they had, I don't know where they got them, but they had mattresses, old mattresses, which were just springs, metal springs. And so they would tip those up against the tree when they caught a train to go out of town, which usually meant they'd been killing too many chickens. That's what usually caused them to get out of town. And they would cook them, and they were very courteous to us, really nice people. Of course, they were worried about the police coming down and jailing them for something that maybe wasn't so nice. And they would tell stories, family stories, history stories, and they never really give us, I don't remember an argument or a quarrel with them. They were just low problem, no, don't make noise sort of thing. And that was really interesting. That went on almost till we started getting cars and then not going down there. But it was a great place to be. And the bridge, Union Pacific track, run over the top of the river. It's not a river, it's a creek. little cottonwood creek, big cottonwood creek. So in the caboose of the cars they had that clamped onto the railroad track, and the train run over them, and the number of tracks, the number of explosions, the engineer could decide or be told that there's either a crisis or all. I don't think they did it for all clear. Usually for an accident or something. So when they ran over and they would pop. But some of the not so good neighborhood boys would sneak in the caboose and get these things. I can't remember now the name that they used. Anyway, they folded onto the track. And they would put them at the bottom of the bridge on a granite wall to keep the river from washing the poles down. And they would put these things on that rock. And then they would stand on top of the rock, and these were old slag dumps from the smelter, from a smelter that was there. And they would drop the rocks on these. Now, I never did such a thing. You know that
No,
I
I
never
don't. No.
No.
You
I
were the
see doubt in your
ringleader.
eye.
You were the ringleader, and you know
Not
it.
so. Anyway, they would drop these rings, and one of them, you know, you dropped it and then duck back if you had a good sense, but this one kid did not, and it blew that darn rock back up and struck him in an eye, and he lived, I assume, the rest of his life with only one eye as a result of it. So then we were much more careful. End of story.
I got in trouble when my girlfriend and I would spend the night at each other's house, and I was supposed to be at her house that night, and I wasn't, and she wasn't, and my mom would call over there and talk to her mother, and I didn't know this, that they were checking up on us. We weren't there
Where were you?
with him.
Oh.
Oh, we were married at the time.
No, we weren't.
In Monterey?
Oh, you're still in Monterey. I'm
Does
not
it-
there anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, I got in trouble a few times. I was at the roller rink, which I was most of the time, and Keith came in with some friends and stood at the rail and watched the skaters. And my girlfriend knew him. And so we skated up to him, and that's the first time I saw him. And I liked what I saw. And the second time I saw him, this same girlfriend, we were in her car. We pulled in a gas station across the street from his parents' house. And he came out and put the gas in the car. And I think actually, when I was 8 years old, my parents would go over to Murray to buy groceries. And they'd park us in front of the grocery store, and I'd just be there. I was not 8, I was about 12, because you had a paper route. And I'd watch this cute little boy drive up on his bike, and all the papers were delivered there. And he'd have to open the papers and roll them and stick them in his bag. He had a paper route. And I watched him do that every time I went with my parents over to get groceries. Come in about the same time and load these papers. And I thought he was really cute. I'd watch him. But I didn't know that he was the same guy as when we met. Then, I don't remember the first time we went out.
Yeah, I guess that it was a movie at outside movie houses, I guess.
We went with your cousin and Melvin and his wife to see a movie up in Salt Lake. And you thought it was the dumbest movie you'd ever seen. And it was a famous old picture. And I don't remember the name of it, but you thought it was a whole night wasted.
Yeah, an old love story.
Yeah, and your cousin,
With
Who
no
was-
horses and no cowboy.
I know, no cowboys, it's no good. But Melvin thought it was fantastic, and that's the first date. And it's not true what he tells people when he says, I had all these girls, and I lined them all up at a red light, and there was another red light a block away. And when I blow the whistle, all you women take off, and the one that reaches the next red light first, I'll marry. And I was the fastest runner. That's how he proposed.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
Well, I was the fastest runner according to
Yeah,
you.
yeah, you won me.
I won you. 9 months?
Something like that.
9 months? A year?
But in that period, I joined the Army.
We were married when you joined the Army. Oh, we were married when you
Yeah.
got your orders. You got your orders. You missed a meeting of some kind. And so then you were drafted. So then we got married. We
Oh,
eloped.
in Heber City, by the way.
Yeah. We eloped. Us two couples. My best girlfriend and his best boyfriend. The four of us. And that was awful. We didn't tell, well, his parents knew. They had to sign for him because he was a baby.
Not quite.
Well, you weren't 18. Or a boy had to be 21 or something.
Well, I must have been close.
Yeah, so they had to sign for him, and we didn't tell our parents. Well, his parents knew. We didn't tell mine. And they read it in the paper. It was terrible.
As soon as she got past the stoplight.
Okay.
No, I guess it was a mutual thing, I imagine, would you say?
Of course it was.
Yes, of course it was.
Of course.
No, I had to beg her.
No.
Is that all right?
Well, we weren't really planning to get married, but he missed a meeting. He had to go once a week, and he missed a meeting. And if you missed one meeting, you were drafted. He got drafted, and suddenly,
No, not drafted, I joined. But it
Well,
was inevitable.
Yeah.
Inevitable, so.
you kept checking it to see if your name was on the draft list.
Mhm.
And then your name was on the draft list. So it kind of hit us both that, oh my gosh, he's leaving and nothing we can do about it. So we just decided to elope. And the four of us eloped.
Basic training at Fort Ord. No, it was not wartime. No, the war was over. And the other wars hadn't started yet. It was an interim, so to speak.
But you still traveled to Europe.
Yes,
You went to Germany.
yes, yes, to Germany, Nuremberg, which happened to be where the trials were held for the German accomplices of the German army. In fact, that was all in the past. They were tried and executed. There was one Hess, a German pilot that flew to Britain, and Britain took him prisoner and kept him there, and he was tried, and he got a life sentence that was in Nuremberg also, and we were told that that's where Hess, this pilot, I was there only 1 year.
Oh, he was always so exciting. He had the gift of his mother. When his mother walked in a room, the whole room lit up. If Eva was there. She was a social person. She loved people. And that was Keith. He needed people around him. And he gathers people. It's like he sends rays out. I know, but there is something about him. He goes on a walk with the dog and comes back and tells me 3 different people's life histories that he stopped and talked to him, and he's excited. And he's always laughing. He was always the positive side of things. I don't know if there's just an aura about him. I kind of liked it, and I loved him hard. Oh, I loved him hard.
Oh, no, a few more than 10 years.
We had our 50th anniversary back in Vegas when we lived there.
So it's at least, it's 60-something years. It's 60, I think it's 65.
February 26th
That sounds right.
of 54.
67.
67.
67.
If the man's the boss. And I'm in
What?
trouble.
What?
It just slipped out.
What I see today, the first major fight that they have, or argument, because you got 2 people coming from totally different homes.
Atmospheres,
Well, no,
backgrounds.
homes and the functions of each home are totally different. Now these 2 come together, and well, my mom did it this way. Well, mine did it this way, and there's a lot of that when you're first married. whether you speak it out loud or not. I think patience and just constantly telling yourself, this is my partner, I love them, I'm never going to leave them, and it kind of softens you down. Forgiveness and understanding. You've got to get both people.
Well, and I think a pretty good sized family keeps a person busy, keeps
Yeah.
persons busy.
And the responsibility of it.
And they start growing up and they're cute and we loved them and we were dedicated to them
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
and we wouldn't change that a bit, would we?
Mm-mm.
I didn't graduate from high school, so I did go to trade school and I got some training in the Army.
Well, and you took your, what do you call it, GED,
Oh, GED, yes.
and got your certificate?
I don't think I'd have it any other way, do you?
No?
I'd better not try.
None of our children ever gave us any problem. They were the greatest kids,
Yep.
and I really don't know why, but
Don't know whether we earned them that well or not.
I don't
But they
know.
were, our family was
But they were protected.
good, nice,
I'm sure.
neat.
When they graduated from school, that was a favorite memory. When they married, that was a favorite memory.
When we
When
went
they-
camping, surely don't forget that.
Yeah, when they had their babies, their children.
Yes.
Oh, those first grandchildren, and then the second, and then the 50th, and however many you end up being blessed with.
Well, you know, a funny thing happened you might not know, Deanne. When Elisa was born in hospital in Las Vegas, and you were in the hospital at the time, and John came and told us that the baby was here. Oh, let's go see it. So he and I were walking down the hall at the hospital, and there was a sign that says, only Dad can come in to visit the baby. And I said to John, because he was a nice guy, I said, I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm going to be the dad we get here. And so actually they let us both in, so we got away with it. That was the first one. And we had lots of fun with her growing up. She was a cute little girl, and for some reason, from about 6, she had to wash her feet in every fountain that she passed.
You're talking about Elisa.
Yes, I am. She would crawl up the fountain and sit on the fountain and wash her feet. And people would watch her, of course. Oh, one time we lost her. In fact, it was when we were driving, I think to here, to southern Utah. Got away from us for a minute. We stopped for just a drink of water and a bathroom stop. And she had disappeared and scared us to death. And in about 10 minutes, we found her at the fountain, sitting on the fountain, washing her feet. So it turned out all right.
I think because of in the hospital, when we went in to see her, she was a preemie in intensive care, and they put needles in her little heels
Oh, yes.
to draw blood. And I've often wondered if that isn't why she was always washing her feet.
Oh, it might be. Might be a connection, huh?
I wondered if it was. I remember specifically, Jody was just toddling. Well, she was born March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, and this was fall. No, it had to be later than that. She was about 10 months old, and Keith had just come home from work, and I had to go to the grocery store. Jody kept wanting to go with me, and I took her into the door a couple times and said, Keith, watch her. So I went out the back, and she had a cute little coat she put on, a little pink coat, and a white Angora hat.
Backwards.
And it had a metal thing that went this way with a little bib, and it was just a cap that fit. And so when she'd put it on, I'd tell her, teaching her to put her own hat on, and she'd hold it up and look at it. And she'd plop it on her head. It'd be upside down.
Let's put the iron ring on her neck.
And we'd take it off again, and I'd say, that isn't right, Jody. And I'd turn it upside down and tell her. She'd look at it. Last minute, she'd switch and put it on. Because she's looking at it right side up here, but when it goes on. Anyway, I left and went to the grocery store, and I wasn't too awfully long, and it was just getting dark. I drove home, and I was ready to turn down our street, and there was something on the road, something white. I thought it was a rabbit that ran across the road. And I usually wouldn't stop for a rabbit. I mean, I might glance, but something made me go to check that rabbit out. Well, just maybe 50 feet more, and the main road,
Yeah, the highway.
the highway with cars going very fast. And I drove up, and there's my little girl in the dark, running up the middle of that road, trying to follow Mama. Oh, I was terrified at what could have happened. And I guess that was one night I wasn't very happy with you, Keith.
Ruined my football game.
You bet I did. Oh, but when you think you've lost a child,
Holy cow.
what a scare. What a scare. When she started coming down the hill on her bike, and it was going too fast, and she fell, and she was almost scarred all the way down her body. And she had curly hair. Always she had curly hair. But I looked at her from behind, and you could see her cheeks outside of her hair. Her head was so swollen. She didn't know where she was at first. She didn't remember much of anything. She remembered starting down the hill, and I think she might remember that the bike started to skid or something. But she was hurt really bad, really bad. And that was just what if we'd lost her, you know? The thoughts of losing a child, I don't know if I could make it through something like that. Losing a child. And every one, you just love each one so much. And if one's in trouble, that's where your attention's going to go right then. It isn't that you love one more than another, but whichever one needs you. And I think that never leaves you. Oh, I have one for Jeff. Jeff is a teenager. And oh, was he a teenager. And he could be so ornery. A Virgo. One night, he and I were home alone. The rest of you were all gone somewhere. And we decided to go to a movie. So we went down to the little theaters at Arvada, there, close, and we saw, what was the name of it?
I don't know, but it was a horror movie for sure.
It was terrible. Jeff was about 16, and we watched that movie, and it was about the Antichrist, Damon. The little boy's name was Damon, and he was supposed to be the devil. And it was scary. And I remember Jeff just shaking. And he grabbed me a few times. One guy was beheaded and his head had spin off somewhere.
Well, you and he were at the movie.
Yeah, just me and him. And he grabbed me, and when we come out of there, Jeff was shook. And that was so neat to see him that way. So upset. Oh, I thought, finally. And that's kind of mean. I didn't mean it to be mean, but that was neat.
Change of direction, huh?
Yeah.
It was all happy memories from Deanne. She just brought joy everywhere. Anyway, we did a lot of camping together, you and us. You in that neat little camper had a little round spot at the top. And Elisa would climb up there and sleep. So we were going to Death Valley, is where we were going. And you guys got away a little ahead of us and was traveling down the road, and we were in a camper, motorhome, I guess, and following you, trying to catch up with you, in fact. And when we got somewhere out on a desolate road between where? Where did, not important. At any rate, we see this little red truck off the side of the road. So we pulled off behind it. And on the tailgate of the truck, was the little baby's potty and a seat on their oldest boy.
It might have been Matthew. I can't remember.
You can't remember this? I'll
I think
never
was-
forget it.
No, I think it was Matthew. On
No,
the
it
potty
could be
chair.
the second boy.
Yep.
Could easily be. Anyway, that's what was going on the road. And when we went zooming by, John was out in the desert with the pot. Nanny's grabbing the kid and putting a diaper on her so he wouldn't get too far ahead. And then they caught us before we got to Death Valley. But it was a fun trip. We had a neat camping, and that was a pretty picture. That was a cute picture.
Well, I love being a majorette, and I got a troop together. Well, not at 5, there was 5 of us. And I taught them all how to tap dance while they twirled to work the 2 together because I love twirling. And so we worked up a real nice act, and we were asked to perform it at, well, once was out in Granger at a parent conference or something. We went out there and did a couple numbers for him. I love marching in the parades. I just really love being a majorette.
We a couple of times dressed up and went to Grandma's house. Grandma and Grandpa, my parents' house.
Halloween.
Halloween.
And I was expecting
Oh,
that one over there.
is that right?
I thought it was Connie, but it was, I think it was Deanne. And I hunched over because I was very large and due fairly close.
I don't know, but Dad couldn't figure it out. We were two weird lookers.
We went out to my mom and dad's house, and Mom had costumes and everything in that attic. And so we dressed you like a woman. You made a pretty girl.
Boy, I wished I hadn't brought that up.
Yeah, we got him in a dress and the heels, and she had some big old lady shoes, and we got a hat or a wig or something for you, and makeup. Then I dressed like a little old man with this heavy coat, and I bent over, and then we went to your house and knocked on the door.
That was Grandma and Grandpa's house.
Your mother was there, Joyce was there, and I think your dad might have been there.
Yes, he was there.
So when they opened the door for trick-or-treaters, they went to give us candy. And he couldn't talk or they'd recognize him. But I said, "We want to come in." And so they let us in. And Joyce and your mother kind of looked at each other. Weird. We stood inside the door. We didn't say anything after that. And they studied us and asked us a little question once in a while. And I answered. And your dad came in. And then your dad went back out. And he went hunting for cars. And he found our car. And so that's how Grandpa said he knew right away who we were. But he didn't. He went and found our car. We found out much later. But they didn't know. So then we went to my brother's house and did the same thing.
Did we?
Yeah, at Arden and Dorothy's house.
Building houses, living at your house. That was fun. Something, would you say 50? Maybe not that many.
Maybe.
Maybe 40, something like that.
A lot in our subdivision. And then the next subdivision over, a street or two. And then in California, you built a lot of houses.
I think probably the family was the most that brought us together best, don't you think, or most?
Mm-hmm.
Our kids showed us how to be parents, I think, in a lot of ways.
My family, me and my brother, were teenagers, and we were sitting talking at the kitchen table to my dad, and he said, we were asking him questions basically like this for advice. And I've always remembered, he said, whenever you have to make a decision, sleep on it one night. And I remember in my life, throughout my life, whenever I've jumped and bought something or done something and didn't take time to think, it was wrong. Not everyone, but most of them were wrong. And I've tried to kind of follow that advice. This isn't any great advice you give your kids, but this is something that really helped me to think about things overnight before you do them. Sometimes more than one night, but...
made a habit of doing what my children tell me and following them. They did a better job than me for sure.
I think some of the wisdom that I was telling my kids just the other day that you had taught me was when you have a choice between buying material things or making memories, always choose the memories. And I've always gone that direction. It's been good advice.
Mhm.
Do you remember telling us that?
Oh, I told you that? I probably learned it from you guys though, didn't I?
I don't think so.
We made it this far.
Yeah. They didn't have many helps on how to be a good parent. When we got married, they didn't have TV talk shows that helped. You just kind of felt your way.
But they had footballs.
Yeah.
Football games.
Yeah, they had football games.
That's probably created more fights than any other single thing.